The hum of the Concord Citadel was both unsettling and hypnotic, a subtle vibration that seemed to pulse through the walls and into the bones of everyone aboard. Captain Zara Beckett, dressed in the pristine white uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, stood on the polished obsidian floor of the Grand Hall, her every step echoing like a defiant drumbeat. Alien eyes, a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes, followed her movements with a mixture of disdain and curiosity. She could feel their unspoken judgment, a sharp, cutting thing that hung in the stale air of feigned civility. Humans were new here, after all, upstart mammals who had clawed their way into the stars too quickly for comfort. Zara smiled thinly. "Let them look." "Captain Beckett," crooned a voice like syrup mixed with nails. It was Sarth Kever, a serpentine delegate from the Vizari Consortium, his slit pupil eyes narrowing. "Your presentation had best be enlightening. We've heard rumors that your species has been dabbling in rather unorthodox technologies." Zara turned, her smile sharpening into something predatory. "I'm sure you'll find it fascinating, Ambassador Kever. Humans tend to innovate when pushed." "Indeed," Kever hissed, coiling tighter around his podium. "Though innovation without restraint has consequences." Zara ignored the veiled threat and stepped onto the central dais. The room dimmed, and a holographic sphere of a barren moon sprang to life above her head. She let the murmurs ripple through the crowd before speaking. "This," she began, her voice clear and steady, "is Linares 3, a dead rock orbiting an unremarkable star. Until recently, it was thought to be incapable of supporting life." She snapped her fingers. The sphere shifted, transforming into a vibrant, green world teeming with rivers, forests, and swirling clouds. Gasps and exclamations rippled through the room. "Using our terraforming drones, powered by quantum-sequenced energy," Zara continued, "we turned Linares 3 from a wasteland into a paradise in under 6 months. This technology could revolutionize how we approach colonization and resource scarcity across the galaxy." The murmurs grew louder, a mix of awe and unease. Zara allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. This was humanity's moment to shine, or so she thought. "Impressive," drawled another voice, this one deep and guttural. Ambassador Krask of the Zether Collective, a towering figure with a face resembling fractured obsidian, rose from his seat. "But one wonders, Captain, if such technology could also be weaponized." The room fell silent, the unspoken accusation hanging like a guillotine. Zara met Krask's gaze without flinching. "We developed this technology to create, not destroy," she said firmly. "Humanity has no intention of using it as a weapon." Krask's jagged face twisted into something resembling a smirk. "Intentions, Captain, are notoriously fickle, especially from species so young." The insinuation was clear, and Zara's fingers tightened around the edges of the podium. Before she could respond, a sharp chime interrupted the tension, signaling a recess. Delegates began to rise, their conversations buzzing like static. "Captain Beckett," whispered a voice in her earpiece. It was Commander Rahul, her intelligence officer stationed in orbit. "We've intercepted something you'll want to see." Zara left the hall, her steps quick and purposeful. She ducked into a quiet corridor, activating her wrist console. Rahul's face appeared, his expression grim. "What is it?" Zara asked. "We've intercepted encrypted transmissions between the Vizari, Zether, and several other factions," Rahul said. "They're planning to frame humanity for violating Concord protocols. Something about unauthorized use of quantum energy near restricted zones." Zara's stomach clenched. "Evidence?" "Fabricated," Rahul confirmed. "But convincing. They want to label us as a rogue species and seize our technology." Zara leaned against the wall, her mind racing. This wasn't just an attack on her delegation, it was an attack on humanity itself. They weren't afraid of humanity breaking the rules. They were afraid of humanity playing the game better than they ever could. "Broadcast it," Zara said finally. "Expose their conspiracy." Rahul hesitated. "That could escalate things." "It's already escalated," Zara snapped. "We either fight back or let them bury us." Rahul nodded, his image flickering out. Zara straightened, smoothing her uniform as she headed back to the hall. She would not let these aliens undermine everything humanity had fought for. When she returned, the mood in the room had shifted. Delegates whispered and pointed as Zara took her place on the dais. The holographic screen above her flickered, and to her satisfaction, the intercepted transmissions began to play. "The humans are a threat to the balance of power," came Kever's unmistakable hiss. "Their technology must be confiscated, by force if necessary." "Agreed," rumbled Krask's voice. "The evidence is prepared. Once the motion passes, the fleet will act." The room erupted in chaos. Zara stepped forward, her voice cutting through the din. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her tone razor-sharp. "This is the civility you so proudly uphold? Deception, conspiracy, and brute force? Humanity may be young, but we've learned enough to see through this farce." Krask rose again, his towering form radiating menace. "You dare!" "I dare!" Zara interrupted, her voice rising. "You call us uncivilized, but we've played by your rules. We've innovated, collaborated, and upheld the principles of the Concord. And this is how you repay us?" The room quieted, the delegates watching her with a mix of guilt and defiance. "No more," Zara said, her voice steely. "From this day forward, humanity will no longer pretend to be something we're not. If you want to label us a rogue species, fine. But you will not dictate our future. We'll forge it ourselves." With that, she turned and walked out, her heart pounding. The galaxy wanted a fight? Humanity would give them one. The council chamber was in chaos. Delegates shouted over one another, their voices clashing like the screech of tearing metal. Accusations flew as the intercepted transmissions continued to loop on the holographic display. Zara Beckett stood in the center, unmoving, her face a mask of icy defiance. Every instinct screamed at her to push forward, to seize control of the room, but she held back. Timing was everything. "This is an outrage!" Sarth Kever's voice cut through the din, his serpentine form coiling angrily as he pointed a clawed finger at Zara. "These recordings are doctored, an obvious human fabrication to sow discord among us." Zara raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a humorless smile. "Doctored? You're welcome to analyze them, Ambassador. We've transmitted copies to every delegate in this chamber. Funny how all those voices sound exactly like yours." "Enough," boomed Krask, his obsidian-like face hard as stone. "This human spectacle ends now. We are here to preserve galactic order, not descend into barbarism." Zara turned her gaze to Krask, her voice calm but laced with steel. "Barbarism, Ambassador, is plotting to frame an entire species while hiding behind the veil of civility. You've underestimated us if you thought we'd stay silent. You misunderstand the stakes." Krask growled, his massive hands gripping the edge of his podium. "Humanity's recklessness endangers us all. Your rapid expansion, your unchecked technological advancements, they threaten the stability we've fought to maintain for millennia." "Stability?" Zara's voice sharpened, cutting through the noise. "You mean stagnation. You cling to power by suppressing progress and silencing anyone who challenges you. Humanity doesn't threaten stability, we threaten your control." A ripple of unease spread through the room. Some delegates exchanged wary glances, while others leaned forward, their curiosity piqued. Zara took a step forward, her voice rising with conviction. "You all know what I'm saying is true. How many of you have been stifled by the so-called order of this Concord? How many innovations have been crushed because they didn't serve the interests of the ruling factions? Humanity is guilty of one thing, refusing to be chained by your fear of change." Kever hissed, his voice dripping with venom. "You speak as though you're some noble crusader, Captain, but your species is nothing more than an upstart horde clawing at the edges of greatness. Do you think these theatrics will win you allies?" "I don't need theatrics," Zara shot back. "I need the truth. And the truth is, humanity doesn't need your approval. We've played by your rules, and we've outpaced your expectations at every turn. Now that we've surpassed you, you call us dangerous. If anything, we've been too restrained. The murmurs in the room grew louder. Some of the smaller delegations, those often ignored or overshadowed by the dominant factions, nodded subtly. Zara noticed but didn't acknowledge them directly. Not yet. Krask slammed a fist on his podium, the sound reverberating like a thunderclap. This insolence will not stand. The Concord will convene to decide humanity's fate. Until then, your species will cease all operations involving quantum energy or terraforming technologies. And if we don't? Zara's voice was quiet, but the challenge in it was unmistakable. Krask leaned forward, his jagged face a mask of menace. Then you will learn why this Concord has endured for 10,000 years. For a moment, the room was utterly silent. Then Zara laughed, a low, sharp sound that echoed in the charged air. It wasn't a laugh of amusement but one of realization, of the clarity that comes from seeing the full scope of a game and deciding to stop playing. Endured, she repeated, her tone mocking. You act as though that's a badge of honor. But tell me, Ambassador, what has this Concord achieved in those 10,000 years? How many dead worlds have you ignored because they didn't fit your agenda? How many species have been pacified into extinction? Enough, Krask thundered, his voice shaking the chamber. Your kind will learn their place, one way or another. Zara turned, her gaze sweeping the room. You hear that? This isn't about peace or cooperation. It's about dominance. They'll come for us, just as they've come for others before. But humanity has a choice to make. We can kneel and hope for scraps, or we can stand and remind the galaxy why it fears us. Empty threats. Kever spat, his eyes gleaming with malice. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and outmaneuvered. Humanity is nothing but an insignificant ember waiting to be snuffed out. Zara tilted her head, her voice dropping to a dangerous softness. Embers have a way of starting wildfires, Ambassador. At that moment, Zara's wrist console buzzed. She glanced down, her expression unreadable as she read the message. Then she smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that sent a chill through the room. Ambassadors, she said, her tone light but carrying an edge that demanded attention. While you've been debating our destruction, Earth has been busy. The holographic display shifted, showing a live feed of a barren moon orbiting a nearby planet. In real time, swarms of human terraforming drones descended, leaving trails of light that bloomed into rivers, forests, and fields. In minutes, the once dead surface transformed into a lush, thriving world. The room erupted in shock and disbelief. Delegates shouted over one another, their words a jumble of awe and alarm. Zara stood in the center of the storm, her presence commanding. We've always been underestimated, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. But humanity isn't just surviving, we're thriving. We've unlocked the potential to create life where none existed. And if you think you can take that from us, you're welcome to try. The display flickered again, this time showing Earth's fleet stationed at the edge of the system. Each ship was a masterpiece of human ingenuity, their sleek designs bristling with experimental technology. It was a silent declaration of intent. Krask's face darkened, his voice low and threatening. This is a dangerous game you're playing, Captain Beckett. Zara met his gaze, unflinching. It's not a game, Ambassador. It's humanity's future. And we're done letting anyone else decide it for us. The tension in the room was electric, every delegate frozen between fear and respect. Zara let the silence stretch, knowing that in this moment, humanity had seized control of the narrative. Then, with a nod to her team, she turned and walked out of the chamber, leaving the galaxy to grapple with the fire humanity had ignited. The Citadel shuddered as the fleet moved into position, an armada of ships from every major galactic power encircling the station. Humanity's delegation was already labeled as hostile, their transmission of the terraforming event seen as an act of defiance. In the command room of the human ship Resolute, Zara Beckett stood at the center, her face illuminated by the blue glow of tactical displays. Around her, officers moved with calm urgency, their voices low but steady. Status? Zara's voice was even, but the tension behind it was palpable. Commander Rahul glanced up from his console, his brow furrowed. The fleet is fully deployed. 73 vessels, varying classes. Their weapons systems are hot. Zara exhaled slowly. And ours? Everything's operational, Rahul said, his tone careful. But Captain, we're outnumbered 10-1. If this turns into a firefight. It won't, Zara interrupted. Her gaze swept the room, meeting the eyes of her crew. Because they're about to learn what it means to pick a fight with humanity. A nervous chuckle rippled through the room. Zara's confidence wasn't bravado. It was a calculated gamble, one she'd prepared for ever since the moment she realized the Concorde was a house of cards. Patch me through to all ships, she ordered. Human and otherwise. A communications officer nodded, and a soft chime confirmed the link. Zara straightened, her voice steady and clear as she spoke. This is Captain Zara Beckett of Earth's delegation. To the commanders of the Concorde fleet, I urge you to stand down. Humanity has no intention of waging war, but we will defend ourselves if provoked. A beat of silence. Then a deep, guttural voice broke through the static. This is Admiral Threx of the Vazari Command. Your arrogance is astounding, human. Surrender your technology and submit to the Concorde's authority, or be destroyed. Zara's lips twitched into a faint smile. Admiral Threx, I'm afraid humanity doesn't respond well to ultimatums. But let me offer you one in return. Withdraw your fleet, or you'll witness firsthand what happens when humanity stops holding back. Threx's laugh was harsh and metallic. You think you can intimidate us? Your posturing is pathetic. Posturing? Zara's voice sharpened. Very well. Let me demonstrate. She nodded to Rahul, who input a command. On the display, a series of drones activated around the barren moon Zara had shown during the summit. As the fleet watched, the drones converged, their synchronized movements creating a lattice of energy that pulsed with increasing intensity. Within moments, the moon's surface began to shift and warp, mountains rising and oceans forming as if the planet itself were coming alive. Gasps erupted across the calm channels. Zara continued, her voice calm but carrying an edge of steel. This is what we're capable of. In hours, we can transform a dead world into a thriving ecosystem. Imagine what we could do if we applied this same technology elsewhere, say, to your fleets. The threat was unspoken but unmistakable. The fleet's formation wavered slightly, a ripple of uncertainty passing through their ranks. Zara pressed on. You call us reckless, dangerous, uncivilized. But the truth is, you fear us because we've proven that your rules are nothing more than shackles. Humanity isn't bound by your limitations, and we refuse to be complicit in your hypocrisy any longer. Another silence. Then Threx's voice returned, angrier now, but with a hint of hesitation. Even if your technology is impressive, you cannot hope to defeat us. The Concorde is united. Your species stands alone. Zara's smile widened, though there was no humor in it. Do we? She signaled Rahul again. This time, the display shifted to show a series of smaller ships, each bearing the markings of fringe species, those often overlooked or exploited by the Concorde. The vessels moved into position, aligning themselves with the human fleet. Their captains spoke in turn, their voices defiant. This is Commander Val of the Kaltari. Humanity's courage has inspired us. We stand with them. This is Admiral Karen of the Selner Union. For too long, we've been silenced. No more. One by one, more voices joined, their declarations echoing across the channel. Zara allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Humanity's broadcast during the summit hadn't just exposed the Concorde's duplicity, it had lit a spark among the oppressed. You see, Admiral Threx, Zara said, her voice carrying a triumphant edge. Humanity isn't alone. And if you think you can crush us, you'll have to deal with every species you've exploited along the way. The ripple of uncertainty in the fleet became a wave. Ships began to break formation, their captains clearly reconsidering their allegiance. Threx's voice returned, but now it was laced with desperation. You've made a grave mistake, Beckett. This will not end well for you. Zara's expression hardened. The mistake was thinking you could control us. Humanity doesn't back down, And we don't lose. Before Threx could respond, Zara gave the final command. The drones around the moon flared one last time, sending a shockwave of energy that disabled the weapons systems of the Concord fleet. It wasn't an attack, it was a demonstration, a message sent with precision and purpose. This is your last chance, Zara said, her voice echoing in the stunned silence. Withdraw, or be dismantled. The choice is yours. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the Concorde ships began to retreat, their engines flaring as they broke formation and pulled away. Zara's crew erupted into cheers, but she remained still, her gaze fixed on the display. Rahul, she said quietly, monitor their movements. Make sure they don't double back. He nodded. Understood, Captain? Zara turned to the comms officer. Patch me through to all Allied ships. The chimes sounded, and she spoke again, her voice filled with quiet resolve. This isn't over. The Concorde will regroup, and they'll come back stronger. But today, we proved that their power isn't absolute. Together, we can build a new order, one that values innovation, freedom, and progress over control and fear. Humanity will lead the way, but we can't do it alone. Stand with us, and we'll stand with you. The response was immediate. Cheers and affirmations poured in from every ship, a chorus of unity that resonated across the stars. Zara allowed herself a small smile, the weight of the moment settling on her shoulders. Let's get to work, she said, turning to her crew. This is just the beginning. And with that, the Resolute surged forward, leading the way into a new era. The Citadel's once orderly chambers were now a battleground of reform. The retreat of the Concorde fleet had sparked more than a political shift, it had ignited a cultural reckoning. Zara Beckett stood at the helm of the Resolute, her command station alive with the hum of ongoing negotiations. But unlike the stagnant bureaucracy she'd once endured, this was something else entirely, a cacophony of voices striving, for the first time, to be heard. On the main channel, Ambassador Kever's hiss came sharp and fast. This disarray cannot continue. The Concorde was flawed, yes, but to discard it entirely invites chaos. Chaos isn't the enemy, Kever, Zara replied, her tone measured but unyielding. Stagnation is. For 10,000 years, your so-called order has silenced innovation and crushed dissent. Chaos is what forces growth. Humanity learned that the hard way. Crass, deep growl punctuated the debate. And what would you replace it with, Beckett? A galactic free-for-all? Your species wields innovation like a cudgel. Do you think the galaxy will thrive under such recklessness? It's not about humanity ruling, Zara countered. It's about something you've forgotten, collaboration. True collaboration, not one species dictating terms to the rest. The galaxy doesn't need a master, it needs a blueprint. Her words hung in the air, carried across the shared channels. For a moment, even the most contentious voices quieted. From the corner of the room, Commander Rahul stepped closer, lowering his voice. Captain, we're getting signals from the Selner and Kaltari fleets. They're proposing joint councils to manage shared resources. Looks like the dominoes are falling. Zara allowed herself a brief nod. Good. It's about time someone else took the lead. A new voice broke in, one that was hesitant but determined. Admiral Karen of the Selner Union. Captain Beckett, I understand your vision, but there's still fear. Many of us have lived under Concorde rule for so long that the idea of autonomy feels like stepping off a ledge. Fear is natural, Zara said. What matters is what you do with it. Humanity's greatest breakthroughs didn't come from comfort, they came from desperation, from risk, from stepping off that ledge and learning how to build wings on the way down. The channels erupted into discussion, some voices rising in agreement, while others clung stubbornly to their old ways. Zara turned away, letting the conversations unfold without her interference. This wasn't humanity's fight alone anymore. It was bigger than that. Behind her, Rahul's console beeped. He leaned forward, his face tightening as he scanned the incoming data. Captain, we've got movement. Concorde remnants regrouping at the edges of the system. Looks like Threx is trying to consolidate power. Zara exhaled, her frustration simmering just below the surface. Of course he is. Bullies rarely back down after one bloody nose. What's their configuration? Minimal combat readiness, Rahul replied. They're signaling to loyalists, though. If they get traction, it could snowball into another fleet confrontation. Zara's jaw tightened, but her voice remained steady. Then we make sure it doesn't. Send a warning shot, something harmless but unmistakable. Let them know we're watching. Rahul nodded, issuing the order. Moments later, a human drone surged toward the edge of the system, leaving a blazing contrail as it bypassed Threx's formation. The resulting ripple of energy jolted the Concorde fleet's sensors, a silent reminder of humanity's capabilities. Message received, Rahul confirmed. They're holding position, but the loyalists might not be so easily deterred. They'll hold for now, Zara said. Fear buys us time, but not loyalty. The real challenge is making this alliance stick before they regroup. As if on cue, another transmission came through, this one private. Zara accepted it, and the weathered face of Commander Val appeared on the screen. Beckett, Val began, his voice rough but tinged with admiration. You've got a fire in you, I'll give you that. But if this alliance is going to survive, it needs more than words. You've proven your strength, now prove your humility. Zara raised an eyebrow. Humility? Val nodded. Your species led the charge, but if this becomes the human show, it'll fall apart. You need to share the spotlight. Let others take ownership of this new order. Zara considered his words carefully. He was right, of course. Humanity had ignited the revolution, but if they held the torch too tightly, they'd burn bridges before they even formed. You're right, she said finally. This has to be more than us. We'll propose a rotating leadership, an interspecies council with equal representation. No veto power, no monopolies. Everyone gets a voice. Val's expression softened, his approval clear. Now you're talking. Let's hope the others see it that way. The conversation ended, and Zara turned back to her crew. Transmit the proposal to all Allied fleets. Make it clear that this isn't humanity's rebellion, it's theirs. We'll guide, but we won't dominate. Rahul grinned. That ought to ruffle a few feathers. But it just might work. The hours stretched on, the Resolute buzzing with activity as the alliance took shape. Delegates debated fiercely, alliances were forged and tested, and through it all, Zara maintained a steady hand. Humanity had thrown the first punch, but the galaxy was beginning to rise on its own. By the time the sun of the system's central star began to dip below the Citadel's horizon, a fragile but resolute accord had formed. Delegations from dozens of species, many of whom had never dared speak up before, signed on to the new council. The Concorde was dead, and in its place, something new was being born. Zara stood on the observation deck, watching as the terraformed moon now shimmered with life below. Rahul joined her, his expression lighter than it had been in days. You did it, he said simply. We did it, Zara corrected. But it's not over. The hard part's just beginning. Rahul chuckled. Always the realist. Still, not a bad day for humanity. Not bad at all, Zara agreed, a faint smile touching her lips. But let's not forget what this is about. It's not just humanity, it's everyone. If we lose sight of that, we're no better than the Concorde. As the two stood in silence, the observation deck filled with a quiet, resolute energy. Below them, the first ships of the new alliance began to break formation, heading toward their respective homes to spread the word. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start. Let's get some rest, Zara said finally. Tomorrow, we start building. Rahul nodded, and together they left the deck, the hum of the Citadel behind them as they stepped into the next chapter of galactic history.